Hola, welcome to my channel, Clear Vision. Have you ever had to deal with a very difficult boss? You know how challenging it can be, but what if your boss is more than just a little bit difficult? What if they exhibit narcissistic traits? Today, we're going to discuss 5 effective tips to help you navigate the complexities of working with a narcissistic boss. So let's get started. First, let's briefly look at what these narcissistic traits can be. A narcissistic boss may exhibit behaviors such as a constant need for admiration, and often narcissists actually do hold positions of some power, such as being a boss. So they may seek out a constant need for admiration and a sense of entitlement. They may well have a lack of empathy, which is normally the key sign towards somebody being a narcissist, and they may well have a tendency to exploit others. So recognizing these traits is crucial because it helps you understand that the problem isn't about you, it's about their personality. Why narcissistic bosses are so challenging. Many of you out there, many of us may have experienced the frustration of trying to expose a narcissistic boss's bad behavior only to find that they come out on top. Because narcissistic bosses can wreak absolute havoc on employees whilst presenting themselves as heroes to the board or to the public. They will thrive on manipulation and control, and they often use fear and humiliation to maintain their power. If you try to challenge them, you will often face severe repercussions. Before we dive into these effective tips, let's discuss some commonly recommended strategies that usually backfire. Complimenting and feeding their ego. Some people do suggest stroking the narcissist's ego to get on their good side. Whilst this may well work temporarily, it is going to be exhausting and it is completely unsustainable. It's also inauthentic and can feel wrong or unethical, and you're just going to go home feeling like you're betraying yourself all the time. And again, it's not sustainable, so it's going to be emotionally exhausting. Some people recommend that you become emotionally detached, which is often referred to as the grey rock technique, and this involves being as boring and non-reactive as possible. However, in a workplace with a power differential, this technique can also backfire because the narcissistic boss may well escalate their efforts in order to provoke you, making your work environment even more hostile. Let's move on to some effective strategies that may well work if you have a narcissistic boss. The first tip is to set clear boundaries. Narcissistic bosses will often push boundaries and expect you to be available at all times. Now, disclaimer here, a lot of bosses will do this, and sometimes it's the pressures of work and getting stuff out and hitting targets, and they have their bosses and all the rest of it, and it could be holiday time and staff are ill or staff are on vacation, so you need to gauge the situation. But this applies even then, even if your boss is not narcissistic but is actually pushing your boundaries and expecting you to do more. So you need to protect your well-being, and it's essential to establish and maintain clear limits. Do it politely, but firmly. Communicate your availability and stick to it. For example, let them know your work hours, remind them of that, or the contract you've agreed on, and that you won't be available after those hours unless it's an emergency. Now, they're going to prey on fears. There's a fear of someone else is going to do it, someone else is going to get the money, you're going to lose your job. This could be a real fear. In some industries, it can be very cutthroat. So again, gauge the situation. Tip number 2, keep documentation. Really do keep this. Keep thorough documentation. Narcissistic bosses may have a habit of shifting blame or denying previous agreements. So keep a detailed record of your communications, your tasks, and your accomplishments. This can protect you. Document important conversations via email and keep copies of your work progress. This not only provides evidence if disputes arise, but it also helps you stay organized and confident in your role. I think this is essential in any kind of working environment. Often we get into this kind of complacent, trusting, we've had a verbal agreement, we spoke on the phone. Always back it up with a confirmation email. I understood our phone call to be this. Is this correct? I understood this message to say this. I understood that our conversation in the corridor the other day by the coffee machine meant this. Do it and get that written confirmation, because that's going to give you some backup where, if and when they start to try to get you to do more and try to, pile on the work, encroach in your free time and all the rest of it. You can refer back to, well, actually, this was our previous agreement. And this also works with kind of like, casual agreements between friends, say like, I don't know, if you're borrowing a car for the weekend or you're whatever, or you're going to pay for something, or you're going to do this, or you've agreed this, and if you've got that friend who's constantly moving those boundaries, then you need to get that kind of written confirmation. Kind of go, actually, 3 days ago we agreed on this. That's why I'm standing here right now. Now you've moved the goalposts again. And of course, depending on the country you live in, depends on how strict employment rules are, or if you're a contractor and stuff like that. I mean, this is kind of business sense anyway, but it can happen on a kind of micro kind of scale, kind of interpersonal relationships going on at work, maybe with team leaders, the boss, or whatever, colleagues. You can apply this all there. So tip number 3 is to manage your expectations. Understand that a narcissistic boss is unlikely to change because they're a narcissist. Trying to please them or expecting them to recognize your contributions is really going to lead to frustration. Instead, you need to focus on your own standards of excellence and seek validation from within, just like you would a narcissist outside of work, or from supportive colleagues and mentors. And again, this seeking your own validation, it's a healthy thing to do anyway, in general. So yes, seek validation. You can also do that from supportive colleagues. Sometimes if everybody's going through the same thing, that's like, okay, so it's not just me. And also maybe talk to mentors or anything like that if you have available. This shift in perspective is going to reduce the emotional toll of working with a narcissistic boss. Tip number 4, moving on from that, is actually develop a support network. Having this trusted group of colleagues, friends, or mentors is going to provide you with this much needed emotional support and practical advice. You're going to share your experiences. Maybe you're even sharing the same kind of experiences and dynamics with the same person. Seek out their perspectives because they can offer encouragement and help you strategize on how to handle difficult situations. Also, knowing that someone else is going through the same thing kind of counters the gaslighting aspect of it as well. So maybe additionally consider seeking professional support from a therapist, as always, who can, I have a bias on that, obviously, who can provide guidance and coping strategies. Tip number 5, protect your mental space. Don't let your narcissistic boss rent space in your head when you're not at work. It really is. Now, this isn't always possible if you're working on a big projects and stuff and there's time and pressures, and we all slip into it. But it's essential to create boundaries to keep this person, the person, out of your mind during your personal time. If they're becoming this kind of critical thing or this pressure, imagine suiting up like in imaginary armor before entering the workplace and removing it after work to create an energetic boundary, if you like. Use sticky notes and reminders to affirm that their behavior is not your fault. You have to kind of remind yourself of this because they're wearing you down. They're hitting into your self-esteem. And avoid gossiping about your boss, as it's only going to drain more of your energy. There's more energy focused on them. Focus on your self-care practices, long walks, journaling, meditation, spending time with positive people, your downtime, time with your family, all of that stuff. Because dealing with a narcissistic boss can be incredibly challenging. It's your work, it's your livelihood, there's a lot at stake. But by setting clear boundaries and keeping thorough documentation, managing your expectations, developing the support network, protecting your mental space, you're going to navigate this difficult situation way more effectively. And the most important thing is to get out of that toxic environment as soon as you possibly can. The same as you would with any relationship with a narcissist. If you come across this, is it really worth it? Look for another job. Look to move career somewhere else. Maybe start your own business, before you become worn down, burnt out, and kind of used up and discarded. Because whether it's in a romantic relationship or a family relationship with a narcissist, the phases are going to be the same. Idealization, devaluation, discard. Okay, once they've broken you, you're no good to them. So you may as well jump ship early, unless, of course, they have a boss and they're seeing what's going on and then maybe they remove them. Again, it's just a brief overview with some tips and tricks. I hope this helps. And in the meantime, until I see you next time, please take very good care of yourselves. Adios.